taking care, I guess, of the orphans is one of the, I guess, more important thing in Islam, and it's a big part of charity that is also an important part in Islam that we all know.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, in a society where we have lots of you know, or a world where we're faced with many children who are orphaned by acts of war, etc. I mean, it's an important mandate for the Muslim community to sort of proactively take care of these orphans. I mean, it's one of the I guess the social structures within Islam to take care of those people within society.
Yeah. And if we reflect back on these three stories from the Qur'an, we see that Musa alayhi salam is a knowledgeable person, and his reaction to the events that happened was based on his knowledge. And yet Al-Khidr alayhi salam has different knowledge, and now that we know the ending of the story, we see that he was justified in his action. And that's why sometimes when we judge something, we have to know all the facts. It's better that we learn all the facts before we judge, and that's what Islam teaches us. Rather than rush and making a judgment call like we see in Musa alayhi salam making a judgment, there is more knowledge, and Al-Khidr had more knowledge than him, had different knowledge, and he was based on this being able to do the right decision. And that's the lesson for us. Yes, we have knowledge, but we should respect other people's knowledge, respect other people's decision, and learn more before we make the judgment call.
At the same time, one of the important lessons you related was the importance of speaking out. So, you know, if we see an injustice within society, we need to speak out against this injustice because it's the thing we need to do. We may not always be aware of God's plan longer down the road as to why this injustice was created, but it is imperative that we do speak out against it and not be silent and saying, well, you know, all things are in the hands of God, and perhaps this injustice or this calamity happened because of that. It did, but we must speak out against it if it is wrong.
One of the interesting things is Al-Khidr alayhi salam with these three events told Musa alayhi salam, when you were in the same position earlier in life, you reacted different. And he reminded him, when he was a baby and his mother had put him in the river Nile, he wasn't worried about drowning because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him. And yet he's worried about the ship drowning, not thinking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could protect it. So that's the first example. And then he told him the second example, when you were fleeing Egypt and you killed somebody by mistake, you didn't feel so guilty. And here, in this case, you are acting against me and you don't know all the facts. And the third story he told him, after you left Egypt and you went to Madian and you met the two young daughters of Shu'aib and you seen them helpless, you helped them and you volunteered, and you didn't ask for wages when you helped these two young ladies. Why are you asking for wages for us to build the wall? So it shows here, if we analyze us as humans, sometimes we have two standards. One when it applies to ourselves and it affects us, and one when we see others and our judgment is totally different. So Musa alayhi salam volunteered his time and effort with the two young ladies, but when it came to Al-Khidr wanting to help these two young orphans, he says, why don't we take wages? And it teaches us we have to reflect on things that happens to us in life and apply it to other people rather than have two rules.
Exactly, yeah, and that reminds me actually of one hadith, one saying of the Prophet ﷺ. He says, "Hasibu anfusakum qabla an tuhasabu." Judge yourself before you judge people. And also in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned to us that we have to look at ourselves, fix our own mistakes and focus on that, and then advise others. But the main point is that don't forget, not to forget ourselves and think that we are perfect or we're good on all aspects and criticize this person and this person. Indeed, to focus on fixing our own behavior and attitude.
Yeah. And you know, you see here in this example where Musa alayhi salam is following Al-Khidr and he's obeying him as the teacher, but still, as you mentioned earlier, he's questioning things that he do. If he does something wrong, yes, our job is to obey the leaders and follow our teachers, but if they do something wrong, we should question them and ask to make sure. We can't just leave it forever and observe and say they know better. But also we learn that there's people who have different knowledge, and based on this different knowledge, they make different decisions. Maybe we're not all privy to all all the information. Sometimes we question, why did the government do this? And this is not right. Well, maybe the governments and people who's ruling have more information that they can't just divulge to everybody. And yet us as humans have this nature to say, why are they doing this? And yet we don't have all the information. That's what we see from this story. Musa, with the little information he made a judgment call. When we seen as somebody who had more information, it's valid. And we see this all the time with governments, where sometimes they do decisions, we disagree, but after the facts, when we know the facts, we say maybe they did the right thing. So this is very important for us. And as we go about, again, learning, and as we said earlier in the show, the first thing is Musa alayhi salam should have said, I do not know. Because he really doesn't know. In all this world, who knows more knowledge than him? He should have said, I don't know. And as we said, I used to teach courses. And one of the things in the course, if it's a technical course, I would ask a question about how does this work. And what I noticed is humans in nature, if you ask a technical question and they don't know, nobody will volunteer to say. And yet when it comes to religion, I noticed in a community, if you ask a religious question and people don't know, you would find everybody saying their opinion. And we have to learn, no, we should say, I don't know. So these are some of the lessons we learn from the Qur'an, some of the things that affects us in life. How do we meet trouble? How do we deal with issues? And inshallah, we'll discuss some more of these issues in the future. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and good night.